Hey, Kris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Pia. Thank you very much for having me on. So excited to be here.
Yeah, you've got an incredible story inside our community, and I'm just really excited to share it with everybody else. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you end up in this industry in the first place?
Wow, that's such a, can't even remember. It's been so long. I've probably, as a young kid, I always was interested in design and creating logos and cutting things out of like cereal boxes and sticking things together. So there was always that creative spark in me. And I was lucky enough, once I finished school, I had a direction and I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do. From that, I kind of just followed that path. I was lucky to get a really great placement as a student placement back maybe 25 years ago, where kind of I cut my teeth and, I was learning the ropes, as it were. But yeah, since then it's changed dramatically.
How long did you work at that agency?
Yeah, it was an agency. It's A.B. Brown's. It's not there actually nowadays, but I was there for 4 years and then actually went to Australia for a year, freelanced out there. And I was going out there thinking it was going to be completely different. But when I went over, it was exactly the same way of working, same attitude, same expectations, just on the other side of the world. So did that for a year, came home and realised how easy it was to do. So I was set up as a freelancer back here in Northern Ireland. And there wasn't many people doing that at the time. I was seen as a safe pair of hands, so I was just going in and out of all these agencies. What happened was it was safe and easy money for me back then because everybody needed, an extra pair of hands. But what was happening was I may as well have been employed by five different agencies at once because I wasn't building my own brand, my own business, my own agency, and I was developing other people's agencies for them while neglecting my own clients. So that was a bit of a learning curve. So it was interesting. And then what happened was I did try to go out on my own maybe about 10 years ago. But what I realized was I was a decent designer, but a terrible business person. And I think both of them have to go hand in hand. I could do the job, but actually running day-to-day business. So I ended up going back into employment for 3 years. I got a fantastic placement or a fantastic job. I was senior designer and creative director and all that. But I always knew there was more in me. There was more potential. It was in the back of my mind that I can do this. And maybe the first time I wasn't in the right place or the right mindset. And then the second time I came out, I kind of started getting successful. Things were happening and I had a steady sort of freelance business. But then after doing that for a while, it was really funny because my wife actually nicknamed me the angry turnip because I was coming home and I was just frustrated. I think it would have been, maybe the frustrated turnip would have been a better term, but I just knew there was so much more I could be doing and, the value I could be adding to the clients. And that's kind of when it started me on the path of thinking there must be a better, easier way of doing this. But I didn't know it and I didn't know what was out there. So then I started searching.
What did you feel like when you say, I felt like I could have been helping them more? Like, what was stopping that from happening?
Looking back now, maybe it wasn't them, maybe it was me. I didn't have a direction, didn't have a purpose, didn't have this vision I've got now. So this was a frustrated designer, creative in me that I wanted to express it more, get bigger results for my clients and get in front of the right people. But I was thinking the wrong way. I was feeling the wrong way and I was creating a bad attitude towards my work. So I was putting a lot of friction in to these jobs and clients before, expecting them to be terrible. So not even giving them a chance. If I'm being honest, I think that sometimes I was turning positive relationships into a negative relationship by thinking the wrong way. Yeah, so that's kind of whenever I started looking around and thankfully stumbled upon you by chance, actually. Well, maybe there's no such thing as chance. I started Googling, just looking at different frameworks and different ways. And then when I came across the whole no BS way of working, it hit all the pain points I had, not closing clients, right? Not getting in front of them, clients ghosting you, and all the good stuff that you're teaching us now. It was exactly the problems I was facing. With joke, it's kind of like you're a mind reader at times for a lot of us smaller agencies.
Well, I've been you, so I'm not reading your mind. I'm just talking about what I've also experienced. So yeah, I totally get it. What were kind of the biggest challenges for you at that time?
I was a yes man, so I would take a lot of jobs on and agree to things that I would struggle with just because I had this lack mindset in business where it's just take everything because you don't know what's around the corner. So I was taking jobs on and, frantically trying to learn them on YouTube that evening. and then going into work. So you can see how much pressure and stress this I was bringing home to my family. And, 2 o'clock I was waking up and running into the office next door, trying to find out how to create databases and all this stuff that wasn't even in my wheelhouse or shouldn't be.
I see. So you would just say yes because the job was there. And it's like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You're kind of constantly reinventing the wheel when you're doing that.
And I had this attitude where if you said no to a certain client, they would never ask you again. So that was a big thing for me. So I was putting myself under unnecessary pressure. I think it's because I didn't know where my skill set starts and ends, and I'm willing to give things a go, which can be to the detriment of your own business and health at times.
That's a great point. You are somebody who's willing to jump in, and that can be both positive and negative because you don't really have it. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but like it kind of lacks some boundaries about what you're going to do. That's
exactly what I needed. A lot of creatives, they're really good at coming up with ideas, but they're not really good at keeping clients on track or putting those barriers up. It's a wee bit like 10-pin bowling, where if you put the lanes up and you keep the clients, so you're actually, it's hard to manage the job, find the jobs, invoice for the jobs and do the jobs at the same time. But once you've got this way of working, it streamlines a lot of stuff, and it even makes it better for the clients because they know what they're expecting and, what way you work. And it's just very refreshing. I felt like a bit of a burnt out, washed up designer after 20 years because I was doing it the same way and I wasn't getting any further. And it was just a race to the bottom with the prices. So just taking time and investing in yourself and betting on yourself, and seeing the potential out there is just phenomenal.
Well, Kris, I don't know if I was actually the first programmer coach that you invested in, but I know you didn't do it lightly.
Oh, I know. I knew this story was going to come up.
It was a big investment, and was it bigger than anything you had invested in previously?
It's the biggest thing I've ever spent on, even my car, even
I remember you saying that.
Yeah,
my car costs less than that.
But I was at that stage where something had to change. I couldn't just keep doing what I was doing because that was silly. Never invested on myself. I was always trying to DIY, cut corners, keep costs down, keep lean, and realizing that's not what investment is. So yes, you were absolutely the first mentor and coach and helping me believe and see in myself. And since then, I've taken on another 2 or 3 coaches in other areas. But the investment was huge for me. It was about 1/3 of my annual income. So it's different if you had a lot of money floating about and it's, we'll take a punt on this or try it.
That's a huge chunk. What made you go, okay, I'm going to do this? Like, why?
I believed in everything you were saying. Your messaging was correct. Your attitude to this and how you cared about people like us. And I think it is because you've came through this and listening to your backstory and how you struggle at times, but you're able to change it around to suit you. That kind of gave me more encouragement because another thing, like it was the first day I found you on the internet and on Google search, whatever, invested that day. It wasn't like I didn't know
that.
No, I didn't know you. Haven't read your books, didn't know any podcasts. So it was a leap of faith.
That's a bigger leap of faith than I expect people to take.
I went with my gut rather than my heart with these decisions.
Wow.
Or went with my gut, rather than my head.
Yeah.
And it's with joke now, if you could see 6 months ahead of you, it would be such an easy decision. But it's that they're the decisions that make the big difference. You're stretching yourself and you're really pushing and you're not sure, but you know that it's right. It's kind of like that bungee jump, taking that first leap.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, kudos to you for taking that leap because I know that it's not easy, especially if you barely even knew me, but it was just the message resonated.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about those first big wins. Because I remember a moment like months in where I think you had a really big month.
Mm-hmm. And
it was this actually double-edged sword. So first I'll ask you more about
Sorry.
Tell me about that.
Can I tell the credit card story first of all?
Okay,
or is that
go
something
ahead.
we shouldn't?
I don't know if I want to plant that idea in people's No,
it's something I'm not proud of, but you could see how much fear and how much I was stretching myself to make a change. So I remember jumping on a fit call with you, I was chatting away and it got to, right, well, let's do this. You asked me for my credit card number and I actually I'm not proud of this, but I gave her the wrong number to buy myself some time. And and I remember running into the kitchen and asking my wife, Orla, I'm like, what to do, do or not, And she's an accountant, so all the numbers in her head would have been like, absolutely not, wait until you have the money to do this. And she said, well, if you think it's right and you're going to do it and go through it, I'm absolutely here to support you, which was fantastic. So I knew, and without that, so came back and give you the right credit card number, and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Oh my God. When you told me that like a year later, I was like, you did not do that to me. I was like, have other people done that to me? Is that a move? Great. Now we planted that in people's stories. That's not cool. Don't do that. But he came back, but he was like, okay, no, I got it. You bought yourself some time to ask your wife, which, wow, kudos to her.
Yeah.
I have a similar relationship with Steve, and just having a partner who's like
supporting
and just cheering you on. Not everybody has that. It's such a gift and such a luxury. And some people have to make that leap without their partner being all gung ho. And that's harder. Like, that's just harder.
But I also felt like it kept me accountable. So I didn't just sign up and didn't do the work, because she was backing me. It gave me momentum to really go all in and just
important.
Do exactly what you tell us to do.
Yeah. So you followed what I said. You took action and you did what I said. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you have any sort of hesitations about doing some of it?
Well, to be honest, being from Northern Ireland here, it's such a slower pace than the likes of Brooklyn. And it felt like you just lifted a small Irish guy and dropped him in the middle of Times Square to start. Because the sensory overload, for the first 3 weeks, my head was spinning. But then after 3 weeks, something just clicked. And I was talking, the language of the course. I remember at the start, I wouldn't even put my camera on in front of the group calls. I was so shy and timid. And
I can't even imagine that, Kris.
No, well, it just shows you how much the self-image and personal development, it's not just about building a business, but it's changing as a person once you start really investing in yourself. And that's where, 95% is mindset and 5% is strategy. So yeah, that's unbelievable.
Wow. And now Kris is like a leader in our community. Like, everyone's like going to Kris for help with their mindset and ideas and tips and all of that. So that's amazing. I don't even remember it like that. I just think of you as Kris now. Talk to me a little bit about
those
first big wins. And I don't know if that's what, that's the one that sticks out in my mind is, I think, January. It was a big January, I think, but.
Crazily, again, what I did was, because I came in quite timid and shy to the course, I got into this attitude of learning, where you really wanted us to implement straight away. So I kind of got addicted to all this knowledge and wanted more information, but I wasn't really taking the action, which I would suggest anyone doing needs to start straight away.
Which we put guardrails in since then, so that you can't.
Right.
You
okay.
Can't do that anymore.
That's.
We saw. We saw you do that. Yeah. Not just you, but.
So it took me a wee while to kind of get up the pace. I've seen everybody else getting the big wins fast and straight away. But once it all clicked for me, I closed 3 of my biggest jobs ever in the same month. And probably made almost like an annual income in the first month. But me being me, I put it down to being lucky. Oh, that was just a lucky month. And I didn't believe that I could actually do that until I did it again and again. And then it becomes the norm. The funny thing is, once you start growing and getting bigger and more success, and people start, your influence and things, what wasn't normal becomes normal very, very quickly. So you kind of get adjusted to success, and sometimes you don't see the big wins. And I think that's what you're really good at on the Monday calls, where it's celebrating the small wins, because the small things make the big ones. And sometimes you can miss wins. I remember back when I was a student, about 17, I always wanted to do graphics for like the World Cup, football or soccer World Cup. And that was my dream job. And then about 2 years ago, I got that job as an older designer. But I was so busy trying to do everything. The job came in and out, and I almost missed it. It was like, right, invoice that on to the next. So that was one of my big goals, to do a job with that client. Because I was too fast and too kind of caught up in other things, I almost missed that was one of my dream goals in my design career. So that was cool to see. It doesn't matter how long it takes. if you keep going after your goal and your dreams, they'll show up. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go back for a second because something that you said, and I remember talking to you at this moment. So you had this really big month. Do you mind if I share?
Absolutely.
Do you remember what the numbers are? I remember it as being 18,000 pounds. Or is it pounds? No.
Yep.
Euros. Okay, pounds.
Yep.
18,000 pounds, which was like more than half of what you had made the previous year. And so this was like a huge month. And I was like, Kris, wow. And you're like, I know, but you're like, but that's, you said lucky. I just remember you going, yeah, but now I have to tighten the belt even further because this is not going to happen again. And I think that I have seen that so many times. And you know what? Success doesn't go straight up. Like you can have a big month and the next month may be the same or more, and it might be less, but that doesn't mean you've contracted. And I think that moment is actually so important for entrepreneurs to not think that when it goes up and then down, it's a contraction. It's just, that's what success looks like.
Well, even now, we landed a 50K job there, which we turned around last month. And I don't have anything solid for next month. But that's fine because I'm working on the business now instead of in it. And I know with what you've taught us and what you showed us and all this, building your pipeline and all the good outreach stuff, I know that that'll come. So instead of looking at it month by month, I'm going quarterly now. And that mindset shift alone is fantastic. What happened to me was whenever I went quiet, I would have dropped my prices and then I would have attracted the wrong jobs. So it would have took twice as long to do. I was back into that angry turn-up mode. So by sticking with what you know and how you work, you can really start having a real sustainable business, which takes a lot of stress and lets you be more creative too.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you trust your business now.
Yeah. And even so much that I've brought a business partner in. Guy Aiden, he was over in New York. I think you got to meet him one night.
I had a great time with Aiden.
Yeah, so he's the yin to my yang. He's all about managing and, all systems and everything, which then allows me to be creative, get in to do the jobs that I enjoy doing. And without this framework or this business model, there's no way I could have scaled so quickly or easily like that. That would have scared me because I was this, we call him Fred in the sheds. I was working in in my garden office down the back and, that's limiting. So to be able to have this way of life and the community as well, I haven't even spoke about how amazing everybody is on the course. We're bouncing ideas, we're sharing wins and everything. But it's given me a second wind as a designer. That's what I would say.
That's amazing. What's interesting about what you've done is you raised your prices pretty considerably. Where did they start and what's the range of projects now?
So I was basically whatever you've got kind of guy, whatever it takes and whatever you've got. So yeah, it's kind of getting out of that early rate mindset and that sort of per job and we're into this value-based pricing. What's happening now is over here in Northern Ireland, we're lean, we're tight, we take only certain types of jobs. So we're taking big jobs off the huge agencies out here, which I never thought would have been possible. It's because one client said, I know exactly what I'm getting, when I'm getting it, and how much it's going to be. And it's just the transparency and, as you said, the guardrails. And before I thought the guardrails would scare the clients off, but it's not. It's actually the opposite. They're enjoying this kind of, we were talking to a client and it took 7 months and something like 10 grand for a website. And this is what we can do in 5 days now. It's, we're not cutting down on quality. We're not kind of rushing it out the doors. It's just that we know how to be efficient with time. We know what works, and that's why we can really create this value in such a short time.
Can you, I say it all the time, but it's easy for me to say. Can you speak a little bit more to that? You're doing pretty big jobs, and you're doing it in a very short amount of time. And people always, most people hear that and they go, well, it must be lacking quality. It must be some kind of cookie cut or whatever. Yeah. What do you chalk it up to that it's not? And how would you manage to do that?
I think it's taken all the fluff out of it. Everything that you've taught us about
the
BS. I don't know if I can say.
No, you can't say on the No BS podcast. You could say it.
But yeah, and it's being concise, and it's also asking the client what is their goal. What are they actually wanting to get from this? It's not just churning and burning another brand and website out. It's soulless. So that's where the horrible idea came from. It's removing all the horrible things out of people's businesses. And yeah, like before I signed up to the course, I was like, this can't be true. this quality of work in 5 days. But yeah, it's proven over and over and over again. And clients, like the testimonials we're getting from clients, there was a big one. It was huge. It took about 6 months, but it was a fantastic job. And we split it up into maybe 4 or 5 smaller intensives. And the way that's kept the client on track. So we can actually manage this with, like, there were 6 stakeholders within that job. So it's not just the small service business owners that I thought this could be applied to. It's just bringing this into any size and any type of client. I know you kind of say about niching down, and that's a good thing, but we're actually niching by clients' attitudes at the moment, which is interesting. You know, if they're open for change and they're wanting the change.
Yeah. No, oh gosh, I have multiple questions. Okay. I want to talk about the niching to the attitude in a minute, but I want to hear a little bit more. You just said something really great, which is, I agree. I think most people think, well, this is only for a certain kind of size business. You know, I personally would only take clients that have less than 3 stakeholders. However, you've been able to apply this to much larger companies with multiple stakeholders. And what I heard you say was, even though this might have been a project that just had to take 6 months because it's so big, you still did it in an intensified way. So you're taking the principles and applying them so that it's still efficient, even for a large project. Tell us some of your tips for how you manage all these people's opinions and this project.
So when I say 6 months, it was actually only 3 weeks of our time. You know, spread out over that time. So if you condensed it down, it's still 3 weeks of solid, good work. And big thing is communication, and also doing that interview and the report, the lead product at the start, that aligned everybody and was sat. And one of the big questions was, you know, what does success look like for you? And we couldn't start the project until all 6 stakeholders agreed how they seen it moving forward and what success looked like for you. And once they were all aligned, it made the project a lot easier. And I think that sometimes designers are quick to get straight into the creative solutions rather than, you know, look at why, how, where, all the good questions that come up in that. I know I don't like using the strategy word, but that sort of directional thing. It
is
piece.
Strategy, but that's just between all of us in the model, in the program. We don't say that to clients, guys.
Nope.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got them aligned in that lead product interview, and that allowed you to stay on track.
And then we put one in charge. We asked one person to be the kind of the voice. So they were kind of keeping everyone in track and check. And Aidan was fantastic at managing the jobs out. And then that meant that I could be on the creative. But it was a massive site. It was a 400-page website. And it actually, we got it down to 30 pages. And it's just phenomenal. So much so tomorrow night we're actually up for awards. We're at an award ceremony. So yeah, if you're saying about the quality of work and being able to do 5 days, but you're still getting nominated for creative work, that says it all too.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, we'll see if we'll win or not.
Hey, it's an honor just being nominated.
It is.
Isn't it? Okay, so that's great. Those are great insights. Wait, can you just say one more thing? Because I saw you comment this somewhere inside our community, but I wanted to ask you more about it. You said I kind of anoint somebody, the leader.
Yep. You stick a shirt.
Tell us a little bit about that strategy.
Yeah, you just kind of befriend the person that's most invested in the project. You befriend them and kind of slap a sheriff's badge on them and let them manage their side, which then means you've only got one point of contact, and then you collate all the changes, you know, at the end. So you're not getting dribs and drabs coming across in 20 different emails on different channels. So yeah, it's just
the sheriff's badge.
The sheriff's badge.
The sheriff's badge is brilliant. Yeah, if you got a lot of stakeholders, the problem with a lot of stakeholders is that there is unclear what the hierarchy is usually, and that's why everyone's opinion is all over the place. But the sheriff's badge is a brilliant way to think about it because you're consolidating them essentially. Yeah,
and also some people have to be seen to be putting their pennies worth in as well. You know, throwing in their ideas, whether they care or not about it. It just seems to be sometimes they have to. Yeah, it just seems to be there's always one person that's more interested and more invested in the project than the others.
Absolutely. And then everybody else is brought in for their opinions, and they actually think, I've experienced this, they feel like their job is to have opinions because that's why they're here. And those opinions are actually not that relevant and they don't really care. So how can we let them know it's okay? You don't have to have an opinion.
Yeah. But no, as long as they're seeing there's progress and the project's moving forward, they're usually happy.
I love that. That's amazing. Okay, so back to the other thing. So you said we niche based on personality type. I absolutely get that. That's what Worst of All Design, No BS, Badass Brands Without the BS was all about. And I want to talk about that because you did an amazing job at that as well. And I think it's something that I think that a lot of creatives would like to do that, but we need to talk about what it takes to actually do it successfully. So why don't you tell us about, because I don't remember if you did your rebrand during the big idea or you did it earlier, but
Yeah.
tell us about your brand.
So coming into the course, I was flying under the name Kris Byers Design. Not exciting, but I was kind of getting safe pair of hands and known around the industry. And once I started the course, I came up with the name Horrible Brands, removing all the horrible things from business. And it started off as a bit of a joke. I was like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always fall back to the Kris Byers name. But what happened was within the group and the community, it started getting a bit of traction. And it started becoming a bit more serious. And it got to the stage where I was like, okay, can I really call my company this? And it's that thing where, you have to own it and you have to step into it and embrace it fully. And what we're seeing with the Horrible Brands that we're creating things that are different. People are wanting different results, so they have to do something different, but they mightn't necessarily be brave enough just yet to own that or step into different. So we feel by calling ourselves Horrible and the work we produce and for ourselves and not taking it too serious, but having fun, but also big results. It's walking the walk. We can't expect our clients to go and do something different if we're not doing it ourselves. Yeah, it's just brought a bit of fun in, and it's differentiating us from everybody else who's out there at the moment. But it did take a wee bit of adjustment for me to get on board with it. And the amount of times I was almost changing the name back to something more bland.
Really?
But everybody was telling me, nope, stick at it. Be brave.
I remember when you posted it and we were all like, that's awesome. That looks so good. I didn't realize you were on the fence. That's amazing. Although I understand I had the same feeling for the first year of Worst of All Design. I was like, can I really say this at a BNI meeting? People do not get it. But then all of a sudden they did. And it was amazing.
Yeah, it's whenever people ask you to repeat it on the phone and then they start laughing.
Yeah. And I think you guys, or maybe you sent me a message and you signed it Horrible Kris and Awful Aiden.
Oh yes, we sign our emails. Have a horrible day, and the amount of people laughing and gets a bit of a buzz about. So yeah, I think it's being yourself and being brave enough to step out into what you feel is uncomfortable.
But it's you being yourself because there's this self-deprecating aspect to it, but it's also fun, which is so you.
Yeah,
but it's not just that. It's doing that and going all the way with it that makes it powerful.
And
you're not dipping your toe. You're all
in. You have to go all in. Like I can tell you now, these design awards tomorrow, we've actually got our tuxedo shirts printed up, and on the back of it, it's sign up to our newsletter on the back of the shirts.
That's so good.
And we're gonna have Sharpie markers. They can put their email on the back of our shirts and then tick a consent box. And
so fun.
It came from Laura Belgrade, that's chat about building your email list. So that was what we took away to have a bit of fun. So Aiden's got a shirt on. He's got a big arrow pointing saying, please sign up to our newsletter. So we'll have to make sure we stand on the right side of each other.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, that's so good. I love it. Yeah, you know what's really fun about going all in on a brand like this is that it has, we say it has legs, right? Like the more fun and the more you embrace it, the more ideas you have. Because now it's everywhere. It's like, oh, that would be fun. Oh, that would be cool. Like, let's try, it allows you to actually be more creative.
That's the difference between a concept and idea, I think. With a concept, there's so many ideas can come from it. And that's kind of what we got here. But I actually took it from you, and you gave me so much confidence to step inside of this because you say about you're not there to attract everybody. You'll attract the right people, but you'll repel others that aren't aligned to you. And that's okay. So that took me a wee while because I was being the yes man. I was having to be all things to everybody. And so that was, and it's got the stage now, we're actually turning away more jobs than what we're taking on. And at the start, that would have been alien to me, to say, no, it's not a right fit or we're not the right people for you. But doing that, then that builds trust and credibility.
People aren't used to people who want work to say no. Isn't that incredible? They trust you more when you're like, I don't think it's a good fit.
And there was someone came to me about, I'll just need a logo, $50. We were like, that's not really what we do at the moment. We're all about building the messaging, the brand. go and work with this guy, and when you're ready, come back. And 6 months later, they came back and says, okay, we've got the logo and we're ready to do the big job. And it's because they trusted that we weren't just in there to take the money and, sort of get in and out. So and I've had a number of jobs from them since.
Wow. That's beautiful. I love that so much. So I just want to sum this up for our listeners, because you've done a really great job embracing your brand and going all in, and we can see it growing. You're actually getting more and more. Kris, you mentioning our retreat. We're recording this, and it was last week, but by the time this plays, it will have been a couple months ago. We're all high off of this retreat. We had such a good time. It was like another level.
That's another thing. Like, for me being in Northern Ireland, I've been over to 3 retreats now in a year. I've been twice in New York and once in Miami, and they just keep getting bigger and better. Just seeing everybody grow together and seeing everybody, like I've year 2 and 3, like there's just so many really good friends now that you wouldn't get anywhere else. We're all, part of a tribe. So that's what I've always been looking for that community.
Yeah. It was an amazing opportunity now that so many people were at the retreat a year ago even. And, the group of people who have been in it for longer than a year were at it last year. And we actually had a special dinner for all of those people and talked about what the change is. What did you share as your change? Like, it was kind of
Yeah, it was the first retreat I went on. It was New York a year ago. Exactly a year ago. At the end of it, you asked us to write a letter to our future self, or a letter to yourself. And then you posted it 6 months later, and I got that letter back and I read through it, and it was just amazing how much, and that's the small wins you miss until you write it down and you see it. And then we did the same thing in Miami 6 months later, and the letter came back, and I remember it was only 2-3 weeks ago, I sat with 2 letters in front of me, and one of them I was being very harsh with myself, and you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And the second letter was saying how well I'm doing, keep going, doing what you're doing, I'm proud of you. And it was just amazing to see. They were night and day. And those reframing exercises you do, where you sit down and you write out everything that's in your head and then you highlight what's negative. Remember the first time we did that? Everything was negative on mine. Everything was yellow. And whenever I reframed it and wrote the opposite, I remember looking again at the 2 pieces of paper, and the one that I was telling myself was an absolute lie. And I was like, why am I even saying this to myself? And when you looked at who you are and what you are and where you're coming from, it's just, it's night and day. As much as the business has grown, we're all growing as people, and we're all in this together. Yeah.
Well, what's so interesting is if you're looking at a reframe that you had to make a year ago and you're going, that was a lie. What that means is that you don't believe it anymore. So you changed how you thought about it, right?
Yeah,
you're like, oh, that's a lie. Why was I thinking that? It's like, no, you thought that.
Yeah, you have changed. Yeah.
It's inside now. You don't have to do it actively.
Yeah, but so powerfully taken out of your head and on the paper, and it's all those self-limiting beliefs that we're telling ourselves over and over.
It's everything. You can't do anything if you don't have any sort of confidence, or you're stopping yourself. Right?
Yeah, and it's kind of the potential, once you realize that there is no limitations to any of this. I think that's what you wrote in my book. I got you to sign my book there before we left for back home. And it was like, you don't even realize the potential that's possible or within you. And that resonated. It's kind of like Willy Wonka, whenever the lift goes through the glass ceiling. Once you break through that ceiling, sky's the limit, really.
Well, you're already on a rocket ship. And I think what I think is really exciting is having watched you implement and grow at these different levels over time. I think what's exciting about that, and this has been my experience, is there's an excitement in the fact that even if you set goals and have some vision, actually where you're going to end up is probably going to be something different and even better, because you're like not even able to see what that thing is right now. But I think when you've proven that you're able to make those kinds of leaps, then that's why there are other things you're going to do in this lifetime, and you don't know what they are.
It's got this stage where now we're actually sitting down with a company, Spin State, and they've helped us create a 3-year pivot vision. So it's sitting down and exactly where you're going, what you want. And so we're taking control of what we want in the future. Instead of kind of waiting to happen for you, we sit down, we really visualize exactly how work and life we want it to be. And then we break it down into objectives and key results. And that gives us, we're bouncing out of bed with this energy and this, direction now. Whereas before we were sitting around waiting for emails to come in, or, checking texts and all. So yeah, to be able to be proactive and really steer the ship now, it just gives you more purpose. And, it's obvious, but a lot of people aren't doing it.
I don't think we're taught this.
But this, yeah.
Different way of thinking. I just spoke to a client yesterday because she said to me, and if this is successful, then I'll sell it in 10 years. And I had to say, listen, like in business, like it's not like gonna be successful on its own without you. You want to sell your business in 10 years? How much do you want to sell it for? How much does it need to be profiting for you to sell it for that much? What are you going to have to do to get it to that? That's how you sell a business in 10 years, or do whatever your goal is. It's not just like, and then hopefully if it's successful, then this happens. No, what is success? Write it down and then backtrack and then take the steps and you can make it successful.
And then, I think that's what I was doing. If I was being honest, I was a bit of a daydreamer in the past where I was coming up with all these great ideas, but I wasn't taking the aligned action. But now I know that with the visioneering work that you help us do and the breaking it down into the bite-sized steps, as long as you're taking those steps towards your goal every day, you'll get there.
Yeah, it sounds almost like cheesy.
Too easy. It sounds too easy. Yeah.
I said cheesy, but also too easy. It sounds too easy and cheesy. Well, it is easy and it's not, right? Doing things can be hard for people. Like taking action can be hard, especially if those actions are not always the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah. And if it's outside your comfort zone, that's where the biggest growth is actually created. So we're really pushing each other here. It's fun, and every time you do something that you didn't think you could do, it makes it easier the next time, and then the goal gets smaller.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, you're training yourself to know, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die if I try this hard thing. And that actually makes the hard things, even if they're still hard, they're easier to actually attempt. I wanted to celebrate one more thing for you. Did you guys just move?
Yes, we got a nice office here in the city centre in Belfast, facing a big hotel called The Merchant.
You got a separate office in the city?
Yep.
Okay.
And
congratulations.
It's slightly smaller than yours, but still nice. And we've got a bit of Axel. We've got some Axel artwork to put up behind us here.
I know, Kris bought a piece of Axel's art, which Axel has his own little art gallery in our studio on the wall. And Kris is like, I need to take one of those home with me. Yeah. How awesome are you? And he immediately knew exactly what toy he wanted to buy with it.
Fantastic.
So he thanks you, Kris.
Fantastic.
But what about your home?
The home move or home life? So we've actually purchased a new house now. We're waiting for a moving date. It's a house that we could not even have dreamt of even going to view 2 years ago before I started with you. But yeah, it started off as an idea. What was interesting was we actually sat down one Friday night, a bottle of wine and a few crayons and sketched out our perfect house. And when we looked at it, the house 2 streets away became available. And it was exactly what we visualised. So we put a bit of a cheeky bid in and they said yes. And we're just waiting. But this course has given me the confidence and the pipeline and, knowing how to go, if you need more money, how to go and actually create more money instead of, waiting around or, playing the victim, poor me, blaming the economy or blaming other whatever circumstances. So yeah, it's kind of taking control of your life and then being able to invest it back into, and hopefully, Orla back in me, she's starting to see these big results and couldn't have dreamt about it.
I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. Buying the dream house that you didn't even dream about because it was too big is like one of the most exciting things for me to watch. We have a couple of people who have bought houses in this program, and it's like it's just like one of those markers. We're like, yeah, cool. Yeah. That's awesome. You get to do that. Are you still the angry turnip?
No, I'm the placid, happy turnip now. But that's another thing. No, Orla was saying it's great to have the real Kris back. And that's, so I feel like I'm a better husband and a better father now as well, especially when, with Katie and all this good stuff, we can pass this on to her, which, it's the possibilities and not putting those limitations on young kids too.
Totally agree. It's it's the best gift we can give our kids, just to show them that you can do whatever you want. Make it happen. So cool. I am just so energized when I talk to you and see all of the things because I just see your mindset expanding and your vision expanding, and it's very inspiring. I mean, it's part of why I think, people don't join our program for the community, but they stay for the community because being around other people who are vibing on this high level and talking about these big things and are just so certain that it can happen.
I always get goosebumps after I speak to everybody on the course. It's
Yeah.
just the energy and the enthusiasm, the can-do attitude.
Yeah,
Is
it's really great people. And Kris, I wish I'd brought it. I think it's at home. Kris even brought Steve a horrible hat, which is
yeah.
super cool.
We don't give them out too easily either.
No, I didn't get one.
No, yeah, so no, he's an honorary member for creating the intensives and sharing it. So
I love it. That's amazing. Well, Kris, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being so candid with us. Where can people find you?
on a Friday night or Saturday or
How
No.
can people connect with you and see all your
yes, so
awesomeness?
it's just everything just at Harbo Brands for all our Twitter, Instagram and everything, and harbobrands.com for the website. Yeah,
Gotta
if
go
anybody
check it out, guys.
if anybody fancies a chat on LinkedIn, just send us a message. Happy to connect.
Yeah, Kris, you're a great connector and again, just such a valued member of our community. So congratulations again on all your success. And like I said, only the beginning. I can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing what else comes along.
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's do this.